welcome to another practice with me, Anne. Today we're going to be doing a practice for the desk jockey, and a desk jockey is someone who sits at a desk. So even if you're not someone who has a job where you sit a lot, in our sitting culture, we sit a lot. Driving, texting, reading a book, if you still read old-fashioned books, things like that. And so we tend to be more hunched forward, and that affects our neck, our shoulders, our upper back. Our hips are tight, our hamstrings and leg muscles are tight. So this is a well-rounded practice for the full body. If you're someone who has a job where you stand a lot, you can still benefit from this. So whatever sequence I teach, it may be very specific, but it's beneficial for everyone. A reminder to honor your body today and always. Doesn't matter how you felt yesterday or how you'll feel tomorrow. Really think about this moment right now as you're doing each pose. So really honor that, take care of yourself. I mentioned this in one of my live classes. Over the weekend, my back started to bother me. It's just something that happens sometimes because of my back issues. I was joking that this is real, I was hanging up pictures and my back started bothering me and my knee started to bother me. I was like, oh my gosh, old lady, I need to stop. So I really honored that with not doing more than I needed to do that day. And then in my yoga practice and even in my cardio practice where I ride a spin bike is for my cardio, I really checked in and honored and made sure that I wasn't overdoing anything for my back. And now it's back to normal, which isn't great, but it's okay, it's doable. I'm back to what feels okay for me. So just remember that can happen for all of us at any time for any reason. There doesn't even have to be anything that's happening, it just happens. Props today, if you have yoga props, you'll want a blanket. If you have 2 blocks, get 2 blocks. If you only have one will work. And a yoga strap. If you don't have any of those props, for sure have a towel or some sort of blanket that can fold and roll easily. And then you can use the belt of your robe or a necktie for a strap. If you want to use some sort of support for the blocks, I would advise a piece of furniture, a stool, if you're near a bed or a couch or something like that, that'll be helpful. If you don't have any of those available, I'm going to teach you that you can use your own body as your prop as well. But for sure have something that you can sit on, something that you'll be able to use for support for a variety of our poses today. So I'm going to move back with my props and we'll get started in constructive rest like we typically do, where you're lying on your back with your knees bent and the soles of your feet connecting with the mat. So I'm going to make sure that my blocks are up at one end of my mat, my strap will be at the other end near my head. I'm gonna have some water. Depending on where you live, like I live in Tucson, Arizona, it's very warm. So make sure you stay hydrated. Even if it's not hot where you live, make sure you stay hydrated. And come to lie down on your back with your knees bent. If you're using support under your head, make sure the base of your skull is supported and your neck isn't feeling jammed up there. So you might want to even move it back a little bit. Step your feet hip distance apart, but of course you can start with your legs out long, your knees bent and your knees together with your feet wide. Just be comfortable here where you have an opportunity to connect with your breath. So get yourself adjusted, get those fidgets out of the way, close your eyes or soften your gaze. Just notice your natural cycle of breath right now. And as those thoughts enter in, you thank them on your inhale for reminding you to be present, and you let them float away on your exhale. However many times that thought, other thoughts or distractions enter, you come back to your breath. time you take in an inhale, make it deeper, longer, fuller to your capacity. And as you exhale, let out a sigh. Maybe you do that again. Inhale. And let out that exhale. One more time. Start to move your toes and your fingers, your feet and your hands, your wrists and your ankles. If your knees were bent, you could extend your legs and stretch, or you could still stretch from where you are, or hug your knees in, or stay right where you are for a breath or two. And the next breath or two, make your way over to one side. And then slowly press yourself up to seated. So here we're going to set up for a heart opener over the roll. So this will work with a towel or any sort of blanket. So everyone's towels and blankets are going to look different. You basically want to start in this position with your prop. And then from a short end, most likely, you'll have to play with this. Since I'm not there with you, this is a little different. You're going to make a roll. So I already know for my body, rolling this whole blanket is way too big for the heart opener. So I go about halfway. And then I use this for a little bit of padding under my head. You don't have to have padding, but it can be nice. So if you have a second blanket or towel, you want to get that, you're welcome to have a little padding. Make sure that's not too thick, but just a little bit for the base of your skull. And then when you come to lie down in a moment, you want to aim to be at the lower tips of your shoulder blades. I'm going to move my arm around. You might want to do the same. And the lower tips of your shoulder blades are basically right in the same path of your armpit. So like if you could shoot back there, come back there even with a line, that's where it's going to be. So a lot of times when people set this up, it's way too high, sometimes too low, but typically too high, and so it's more like cramping the neck. So we're actually going to open our hearts, allow your neck and shoulders to relax and let go. So you want to make sure you're in a good spot. So a good way to set up is to come to lie on one side and come to the edge of the roll and kind of lay on top of it with your armpit right on the roll and your arm above the roll. And then you'll roll over onto your roll. And for me, I still have to make a little adjustment. I set my head down. Whew, this is intense for me today. So it can be physically intense. So that's my indicator that I actually want to unroll a little bit. Usually I can do halfway, no problem, but today, for whatever reason, my body told me that no, I need to do a little less. I'll set up again. Coming on over. Yes, much better for me today. Okay, and you might have to wiggle around. So your arms should easily be able to come above the roll. If they can't, then you know that your roll is probably too high, too close to your head. It could be too low, but check in. You might have to wiggle and jiggle, and it's going to be intense because physically our bodies aren't this way. You're an extension, you're in a little bit of a back bend, but you might also find that it feels really good, that you're really opening. So give it some breath here, and if it's just too much, you come out. It can also be emotionally opening and vulnerable. So you could place your hands on your heart. If you have a block or another blanket that you could put on top, just sometimes a little bit of weight can help. And if it's just way too much, then you come out of the pose. Just come up and have a seat, close your eyes. From here, you can keep your knees bent, you can extend your legs out long. That's a little much for me, especially for my low back issues, so keep that in mind. You could also step your feet as wide as your mat and allow your knees to support each other. And then you just stay here. So ideally, this pose is great if you can hold it for 5 minutes, because I don't want my videos to go on and on forever. We won't hold it that long, but if you'd like to, you can pause, set your timer for 5 minutes, and hold this pose. This is something you can do before bed, when you wake up in the morning. It's a restorative pose. It's a beautiful pose. It really helps us to open our hearts to get longer. So we'll stay here in silence for a few more rounds of breath. Your legs are out long, bend your knees, bringing your feet back to your mat. Coming back to a variation of constructive rest and roll over to one side. Just take your time. Remember, this can be a lot, so honor that, even though maybe it doesn't seem like it can be or should be. Whatever it is, it is. And then slowly press yourself back up to standing. Standing up to seated. And take a moment just to check in and feel and notice. Your breath's probably changed, your neck might be more relaxed, your heart's more open, your shoulders maybe don't hurt as much, or your upper back. And maybe all of that is still there, and that's okay. That might mean that you need to be in it longer. I always say when my students in class do this pose that when they sit up, their faces have changed. And I say it every time, and it's always true. So your face likely changed. You may even notice that mine changed. This pose does so many beautiful things for you. It kind of gives you whatever you need in this moment. So I recommend this as something that you regularly do on your own. Take your roll and you're going to fold it back up so that you can sit on it. So it's nice to sit. I'm going to sit sideways for just a moment. Sit at the edge. So you want to be right at the edge. If you're all the way back here, it's not really helpful. But if you're right at the edge, your pelvis tips forward, and this helps you to sit tall. So many of us sit like this, I normally do, but this helps you to kind of guide your body to sit well, to sit healthier. So I'm going to turn, and we're going to come into Baddha Konasana, which is cobbler's pose. So the soles of your feet will come together and your knees go out wide. If this is too much, you can always adjust, moving your feet forward or stretching your feet away from each other. If that's still too much, then you can come into a cross-legged position or whatever is comfortable for you. So keep that in mind. If your feet are touching, there's going to be a firm press between your feet, but not so intense that you're really tensing up all your muscles. So just firm here, checking in that your spine is tall. If this is too much for your knees, if you have blocks, you could support your knees with your blocks. If you don't, pillows can work, other blankets, anything like that is helpful. Then we're going to bring our hands on our shoulders. And we're going to do some shoulder rolls here. You're going to lead with your elbows. So the elbows are really going to make the action for this whole upper part of the body. So bring your elbows forward and then up and kind of back and around. And then do that again. If this is too much for you, then you can come into regular shoulder rolls. But I like this because this really gets the upper body making that movement. These are great things that you can do when you're sitting at your desk. It's a little harder if you're in the car, I guess, unless you're in the back seat. You might be able to do it in the middle, but you could do regular shoulder rolls while you're sitting at a stop sign, a stoplight. Let's do one more. Nice, and then come back to seated, sitting tall. We're going to come into a twist. So you're going to bring your left hand to your right knee, and your back hand's going to come behind you. You can tent your fingers if you can reach. Your palm can be there. I have to tent my fingers. And then from your belly button is how you're going to start the twist. So start moving from your belly button. So that's your low belly, your upper belly, your chest, and then your shoulders. And you can always back out. Maybe this is where your twist needs to be today. So there's still length in your spine as you open your heart to the right. Your head and neck can follow, but that might be too much, so check in where your head and neck need to be. Your next exhale, come out of your twist. Taking a nice deep inhale, and an exhale again. And then we'll inhale nice and tall. And on the exhale, we're going to twist to the left, bringing your right hand to your left knee, your back hand into the mat, or even keeping out your hip. Start with the low belly as you make your way, turning into your twist, keeping the length. So make sure that you're not like sitting back on your sit bones too far, that you're hunching back, that you're leaning into that back arm or shoulder. It's helping you to lift and to open. So even though you're in a twist, you're still open here. Take a nice deep inhale to get tall. Exhale, slowly come out of your twist. Inhale and exhale. Let's extend our legs out long. Give us a little break here. You can wiggle, jiggle, windshield wiper. If you're in Baddha Konasana, you'll come back there. If you're cross-legged, switch the cross of the legs. And if you're not sure which side you do, the one that feels weird. Coming back to Baddha Konasana, lengthen the spine however you're seated. And then bring your right hand down by your side, left arm up and over. So start to reach. Imagine from your sit bones, you're reaching up through your fingertips. You could stay right here, or you could come deeper into the side stretch. So your other elbow can bend, you can crawl your hand farther away. Make sure you're not crunching into this right side. So even though you're bending here, there's still a lift and coming over. And then there's a lot of length on the left side. Inhale up, exhale your arms down. Let's go to the other side. Walking your left hand out, right arm up and over. Length, and then coming over. And this side, I've got to adjust my hand and arm because my shoulder bothers me in certain positions. So honor that. If you need to have your hand in any position, you can have it out to the side, whatever works for you. And then check in that you're not crunching into this left side, lifting, lengthening, breathing. Next inhale, start to come up. Exhale, arms down. Inhale, gathering length once again. On your exhale, you're going to hinge at your hip creases to come into a forward fold. That might look like this for you today. Maybe you come deeper. Keep length in your spine. So almost like you want to imagine you're going to bring your heart down onto your feet, which I know is not going to happen, and that's okay. That's just like what we're working toward, even if it never happens. So you keep that length. You don't want to round to come into this pose. Nice and long. And then check in with your head and neck. So we tend to jut our chins forward. So see if they can really just follow. It's really hard to do for us. And then slowly make your way back up. Bring your hands on the outside of your knees, closing them like a book. From here, you could step your feet a little wider and do some windshield wipering. That might feel good. You could extend your legs out long again, give them a wiggle. You could windshield wiper that way. Awesome. All right, gonna make our way into a tabletop onto all fours. If you want padding for your knees, use your blanket or your towel. That's not something I need, so I set that aside. But do honor your body. It doesn't matter that I don't need it. Some days I do. So coming into tabletop, all fours. So start with your wrists below your shoulders and your knees below your hips. And then check in. For a lot of us, this 90-degree angle is too much. So you might need to walk your hands farther forward, a little more out to the side, a little of both. If that's just not going to work, you can come into forearms. If you have blocks, use your blocks for your forearms. This is way better because it's almost at the height. But if you don't have them, then you don't have them, right? So you just do your best. Spread your fingers nice and wide. We're going to move to your breath. So inhale. And on your exhale, start to round. So think about your tail, tucking your tail, hollowing out your belly, rounding your back. And then when you inhale, lift your tail up, opening your heart. Head and neck come up last. So notice if you're just lifting and jutting your chin. And go to your own breath. So when you exhale, you come into that cat where you're rounded and closed up like a forward fold. And when you inhale, you're opening up into that cow, into a back bend. So be gentle, honor, And you don't just have to do traditional cat-cow. You can wag from side to side, whatever feels good here. Do a couple more rounds. Notice that head and neck want to lead. You might even want to not move the head and neck, and see if you can make these movements really starting with the pelvis, working your way up the back to the chest and shoulders. All right, coming back to neutral once you finish that last round. We're going to come into something called thread the needle. So the next time you have an inhale, lift your right arm up tall toward the ceiling. You're going to open your chest to that wall, and on your exhale, you're going to start to reach your hand under your body, reaching your fingertips as far away from you as you can. So for some of you, you're not going to be able to get your head down to the mat. If you have a block, you could use the block. If you don't, you could use your left hand to kind of prop up. You could fist, you could use a blanket, anything like that. If this doesn't feel okay, then come to a seat, a comfortable seat, and you'll just take your right arm and you'll reach it. Do that for a few rounds of breath. We're going to hold the thread the needle a little longer than you should probably come into that position. So if you're already there, awesome. If you need to come in. And then once you're here, your left hand is basically in front of your face. You could tent your fingers, that's what I like to do. It helps me to open my chest a little more and come into a twist. You could extend your arm. You could bring your hand behind your back. If you're dumping a lot of weight into your head and neck, then keep your hand in front of your head, in front of your face. And you can always move your arm and make a different choice. I'm going to come out for a moment because if you are in a seated position and you have your arm across your body and you're stretching, you're going to release that. And then you're going to come into a twist. So taking your right hand to your left knee and just a small, simple twist here, because that's also what thread the needle is. It's a twist. And then everybody, on your inhale, you'll start to reach your arm back up, opening your chest. And on your exhale, bring your hand back down. So if you want to stay seated and do that variation on the other side, then you'll do that. If you're ready to be in your tabletop, you'll come into your tabletop. Inhale your left arm up tall toward the ceiling, opening your chest. On your exhale, reach your hand under your body, reaching your fingertips as far away from you as you can. Fingertipping your right hand in front of your face or keeping the palm down. I like to do the fingertips. It really helps me to open. You can extend, adjust your arm. Just find what's best for you. And if you're seated, you're reaching your arm. The other arm's assisting. And then let's come into that twist. So those of you in the thread the needle, stay where you are. Those of you seated, bring your left hand to your knee. Your right hand stays at your hip as you come into a little bit of a twist. Next, inhale, start to reach that arm back up, opening your chest. And exhale, bringing your hand back down. Back into your tabletop. From here, we're going to set up into a downward facing dog. If you don't want to do a dog, you can stay in tabletop. If you know puppy or wall dog, or if there's some other pose you'd like to do, please do it. Otherwise, step your hands, one hand print forward. Curl your toes under. You're going to lift your knees up off the mat. You're going to move your butt, hip, and thighs away from your hands. Lifting your sit bones up toward the ceiling, bringing your body into a long inverted V. So length and space in your spine. That might mean you need to bend your knees a lot to help lift your sit bones. You could pedal your feet, you could stay still, pick up a leg, give it a shake. You get to decide. Breath or two more. Spread your fingers wide, just like you did in your tabletop. So you're not putting a lot of weight to your wrists. And then bring your knees down to your mat. I'm going to turn. You're going to step your right foot forward to come into a low lunge. If you have blocks, use your blocks. If you don't have blocks, you can use your thigh. If you have a stool or something, then you use that. If you only have one block, have that block on the inside of your foot. So with your left hand, and then your right hand can be on your thigh. Check in that your knee is right above your ankle. So if you're here, that's not safe for your knee. So you can crawl your toes forward. Sometimes it's stuck, you just pick it up. It's okay if your knee's behind your ankle, but not forward of it. But we want to try to have this 90-degree angle. And then from here, if you have 2 blocks, bring both blocks inside your foot. If you don't, you keep your right hand on your thigh as you heel toe that foot off to the side. So I want you to really see that even though I'm at an angle, my knee is still right over my heel. So I don't want to be in this position or this position. So it's still a lunge. We're just getting deeper here into the psoas muscle, which is what we focused on last week, if you did this class with me last week. So 1 block, keep your, even if you have 2 blocks, you're just going to use 1 for right now, keeping your left hand on your block and your right hand on your thigh. If you don't have any blocks, you have both hands on your thigh. You're going to come into a little bit of a twist. Again, that idea of working from your belly, keeping your chest open. Into our dragon pose. And you'll slowly start to come out. Heel toe your foot back to center, back to your lunge, whatever that looks like. Back to your tabletop. From here, you could wiggle out your hips. You could pick up that leg and give it a shake. You could come back into your downward facing dog. So do what you need to do for a breath or two. I'm not going to come into it, but you know what the options are. And then make your way back to your tabletop and step your left foot forward. Make adjustments here. You might have to move your back knee or get that front foot more forward. Check in with your alignment of your knee, your hands on your blocks, some sort of other support, or hands on your thigh. So you want to have nice length here. So a lot of times we don't have blocks or we think, oh, I can reach the floor, this is fine, but we want to be really long and open. So think about that. It's not important that your hands reach the floor. It's important that you have this length and this opening. I'm still feeling a lot in this hip, even being high up on my blocks. Breath or 2 longer here. Remembering you can always come out of a pose early and come into anything that you need to practice in this moment. And let's come into that dragon pose. So if you've got blocks, bring both of them on the inside of your foot. If you're up on your thigh, you just heel toe over. It's a little harder to do, but you can do it. Check in that your knee is right above the ankle, so your heel isn't too in or too out. Have that good spot and really press through all 4 corners. You can have your right hand on a block or a prop, your left hand on your thigh. You can have both of your hands on your thigh and start moving from your belly button, your low belly, to come into this twist. Keeping your chest and shoulders open, broad and wide. You can decide with your back toes, they can be curled under or the top of your back foot on the mat. I prefer my toes curled under. It gives me a little more balance, a little more control, but you decide what's best for you. Slowly start to come out of your dragon, heel toe your foot back to center, briefly coming back into your lunge, come back to your tabletop, and from here, come back into a downward facing dog. Unless you choose not to do that, you can stay in your tabletop, you can do some cat-cows, do some wiggling, whatever works best for you. So if you're in a tabletop or a dog, well, wherever you are, you're going to make your way into a standing forward fold, but if you're in a position where it's best to come up to standing, then you do that. Otherwise, you'll start to walk your feet forward, your hands back, or a combo of the 2. I like a combo of the 2. My blocks aren't near me, but I can easily reach the floor and have a long spine. If you don't have blocks, or they're not near you, or you don't have something to use, and your spine is hunched over, then come into a half fold, bringing your hands to your hips. So my spine is really long here. You also have an option to deeply bend your knees and bring your forearms to your thighs. So you don't want to like tuck or tilt here. So neutral pelvis, long spine, and my head and neck are a continuation of my spine as well. This can be a really nice way to do a forward fold. If you just don't have the props, don't have the flexibility, that's totally fine. It doesn't matter. Everyone's going to bring their hands to their hips and start to come into that half fold. And then imagine you're reaching from your belly button to your heart to slowly lift yourself up to standing. Coming into Tadasana, I'm going to move off of my mat just so you can see me. You stay on your mat. If you need to adjust to see me, then you do. Coming into our mountain pose, so start with the feet, the roots of your body, lifting your toes, setting them down, checking in that you feel like all four corners are connecting with the mat. So if you don't, adjust your feet, find that good stance, and then you'll feel the lift of your belly button up to your heart. Your shoulders are wide. Think about even your shoulder blades are wide and open. That allows your heart to be open. And then as your arms come down by your sides, I usually just tell students to have however they'd like, but turn your palms to face forward. And then you'll feel a difference here, a stretch and opening. It might be intense because we tend to be like this, but it's helping you to be open, to be wide, to be long, to fight that hunching forward. So we gotta keep fighting that, always. I'm gonna turn so you can see me from the side. You're gonna bring your hands behind you. So if you can easily interlace, you'll interlace. If you can't, just extend your arms out behind you. So keep the lift. Your hands could stay at your small back if that's where they are, or you can start to lift your arms up, reaching them towards straight. Keep your heart open, so don't do this. Keep your spine long as you open your heart. You won't go very far. And bring your arms back down, release, give it a shake. So you did an interlace, your habitual interlace. This is my habitual interlace. The second time we're gonna do the other interlace. It's gonna feel weird, so the other pinky is gonna be on top. I'm gonna move back. If you come into, you're like, I don't know which one it is, do your normal interlace and then the other interlace. And if you just can't do it, then you don't do it. It's fine. Just try. We're gonna press through the feet, lift, and then you're either gonna extend your arms behind you, reaching your fingertips, or start to lift your hands off of your back if that's okay. This may feel very different on this side because it's your non-habitual side. Just be okay with that. Keep your breath flowing. And then bring your hands back down, release, give it a good shake. Yeah, do some shoulder rolls, wiggles, jiggles, whatever you need. Coming back into Tadasana. And arms can just be comfortably down by your sides. We're gonna do curious dog tip. So you're gonna tip your right ear to your right shoulder. So don't bring your shoulder up, just tip. And then depending on how it feels here, if it's really intense and you wanna stay here, really think about your breath and the side of your neck, then you do that. If you feel like you have a little space to maybe bring your chin down a little, like you're bringing it down towards your collarbones, though your ear is still tipped, and then maybe reaching your chin a little bit up toward the ceiling. And maybe down again. And up again. And maybe you found a sweet spot where you kind of want to stay for another breath. Inhale, bring your head back up. Exhale. We're going to tilt to the other side. Bring your left ear to your left shoulder. And check in if you're not standing tall, if your shoulder is coming up to your ear. So you can make that adjustment. Come back. Don't move your chin yet. Right? We're staying in this moment, even though we know what's going to happen next. And then you can start to make that movement if you feel like it's okay. So keeping your ear down toward your shoulder, start to bring your chin a little bit down toward your collarbones. And then start to move your chin a little bit up toward the ceiling. This side's way more intense for me. So maybe the movements are even smaller. Maybe they're a little bigger. And then come back to that spot, wherever spot you choose to stay here for one more breath. Your next inhale, you'll lift your head up. Exhale, release. All right, you're gonna bring your hands behind your head like you're gonna do a crunch, so interlace your fingers at the base of your skull and have your elbows out to the sides. And maybe that's all you're gonna do today, is imagine that you're reaching your elbows out wide. Checking in here, so feet, the lift, the open. And then if it feels okay in your shoulders and your body, You can do a little more, but you do not have to. Imagine that you could bring your elbows back behind you and your elbows would touch. And if anyone can do that, you need to email me or take a video of yourself, right? That's a joke. You shouldn't be able to do that. And keeping yourself standing nice and tall. So don't do anything weird to try to get your shoulders back more. Or excuse me, your elbows back more. Release your hands, give it a good shake. Nice. All right, come back down to the mat. Just gonna be on our knees for a moment, but if you need padding, then you get padding. Especially if you decide to do your plank on your knees, you're welcome to do that. We're gonna come into a forearm plank, so we're gonna be on our forearms. You can do it on your knees. I'm gonna do the step through variation, so join me. If you already know how to do forearm plank, you can set yourself up. So starting in a tabletop and then coming down to forearms. Make sure that your elbows are under your shoulders. You can have your fingers spread wide like you did in dog and cat-cow, or interlace your fingers. I prefer that, so that's up to you. So here's just like a tabletop forearm thing. If you press your forearms in the mat and you feel activation, you can stay here, that's plenty. You can move your knees back just a little bit, and that's more of a forearm plank on your knees. Or you can extend one leg out long, pressing through the heel. That's the easy leg, this is the hard one. So you don't want to sink in, you've got to have a lift. So I'd rather your hips be a little too high than too low. So keep your back safe, keep your shoulder blades spread wide, lifting your belly towards your spine, neck is long. This is a hard one to keep. Keep breathing. If you got another breath in you, bring your knees down and come all the way down onto your belly. You can rest in crocodile or you stack your palms. You can rest your chin, your forehead, your cheek. You can give your hips a wiggle. You can do windshield wipering. If this is all you want to do for your belly back bend today, then stay here. If you want to do a little more, we're going to come onto forearms. We're going to come into Sphinx pose. This pose of all the belly back bends is the toughest one for me. So I have to really keep in mind because this can bother my low back. So if it's bothering you and you know Cobra, you can come into Cobra. Otherwise, just come back into your crocodile. So you check in that your elbows are again under your shoulders. Forearms are parallel to each other and your fingers are spread wide. My knee's doing something weird here. And then press your pelvis into the mat. So you want your chest to be open. Make sure your shoulders aren't up by your ears. And almost like you're, before a baby starts to crawl, they do that scooching thing. Like you're going to scooch through your arms, but you won't actually scooch. So if it's too much, remember to come out. And then if this feels okay, then you're going to turn your head and neck to look over one shoulder. Just turn it. It's like an owl turn. And then come back to center. And then turn your head and neck to look over the other side. And come back to center. And then come back down into crocodile or any variation, wiggling out your hips, windshield wipering. Last downward facing dog. Coming back to your tabletop, stepping your hands forward, curling your toes under and lifting your hips up. Imagine you lift your sit bones toward the ceiling. And then I want you to shorten your dog. Walk your feet in a little bit. Possibly your heels will touch, but they might not. It doesn't matter. You're going to aim your heels down toward the mat, even if they don't touch. And then you're going to lift your toes up off of the mat. So not your heels, your toes. And you're going to feel a stretch. And if you don't feel one, then shorten your dog more. And if you don't want to be in dog, just do this from a standing position. And then from here, come back up. Just briefly working through a forward fold to come back up to standing. Last standing pose, and we'll come back down onto the mat. So we're going to do our balance pose. So if you know for balance work, it's best to be by a wall, by furniture, by some sort of support. Please utilize that. It's always important. So we're standing in our Tadasana, have that grounding through our feet, the lift through our belly, open chest, shoulders are engaged, but they're not crunched up. And we're tall and we're long. So we're going to feel the roots of our feet. So we're going to do a pose that I call eagle in a tree. So it's tree pose legs and eagle arms. All right? So we got to have that tree be really grounded and rooted. So lean a little bit over to your right foot leg and bend your left knee and turn your toes out. And if you just want to stand on one foot today, that's plenty of balance. You don't have to do any of the fancy moves. But if you're going to come into a tree pose, turn your toes out so your knee is out. You've got some external rotation. And then bring your foot to your leg. You could stay right here. You could bring your foot to your shin or inner thigh. Excuse me, that's not your thigh, your inner calf. Or up to your inner thigh. Make sure hips are square forward, whatever you choose. So if you're all wonky, this is not worth it. Anywhere but right on the knee. So you choose where you want to be, and maybe it's going to choose for you. Keep that lift, and then extend your arms out in front of your chest. So your right foot is on bottom, your right arm will go on top. Give yourself a hug. Start here. Lift your elbows up to shoulder height, and then imagine you can move your elbows away, so you're really getting your upper back to be engaged here. If this is good, you stay here. If you have other way to practice eagle arms, bringing your forearms parallel to each other, backs of palms together or fronts of palms together. I realize I'm probably being cut off on that part. Or just have your eagle arm hug. Release your arms, release your legs, give it a shake. Nice. And it's okay if your balance isn't great, just keep doing it. Even if it's just standing on one foot for 5 seconds, 1 second, you just keep doing it. Spread your toes, create that lift, the roots of your body, so you can move your roots over to your left foot leg, turn your right toes out, bring your foot on to anywhere on the inside of your leg, but right on that knee. Make sure your hips are square forward, you've locked your gaze. And then reach your arms out in front of your chest so your left foot is standing, your left arm will go on top. Give yourself a hug first, and then decide if you're going to come into a different variation of eagle arms. There's many variations. They're accessible for everybody's body. So we want to lift your shoulders up to, lift your elbows up to shoulder height and press away. Almost like you're wearing a cape. So your upper back is really wide. Keep your breath flowing, and even imagine your collarbones. You're trying to widen your collarbones. Release your arms, release your legs, give it a good shake. Awesome. Going to come back down to the mat to lie down. Make sure if you have a strap, that you have your strap nearby your head. If you have something to support your head, use that. And come back into constructive rest. With your knees bent, the soles of your feet on your mat. Just taking a moment. Hug your right knee into your chest. Take your strap, if you have one. You're going to put it on the arch or the ball of your foot. You get to decide. If you don't have a strap, just bring your hands behind your thigh. And you're going to reach your leg up long and tall toward the ceiling. If you've got a strap or strap-like item, right hand on the right side, left hand on the left side. Your other knee can stay bent, or you can extend that leg out long. So top foot, you're pressing through your heel. If that causes sciatica or other issues, press through the ball. Same thing with the bottom foot. It's active if it is extended. Supta Padangusthasana. This is the pose I like to say makes you taller. If your knee is really bent, then you want to move your leg away so you can be long and tall. You're aiming your foot towards your face, but it's not going to get there, and that's okay. Keeping your feet and your legs active, both. Like you're on a really weird floor where you're standing and pressing through all 4 corners. Remove your strap, hug your knee in, maybe you need to do a little movement here, and then you'll extend your leg out long and have your feet and legs long and relaxed. Notice your right side, notice your left side. Step your feet back to your mat, hug your left knee into your chest for a moment. Take your strap, or your hands behind your thigh and extend your leg up long and tall toward the ceiling. Adjusting your leg, especially if you have a strap. Now, my arms aren't very long, so I don't have a lot of adjustment if I don't use a strap. So your knee might be bent if you don't have a strap. Decide if your other knee is going to stay bent or extend. It intensifies this stretch, and just because you did on one side doesn't mean you will on the other. Remove your strap, bend your knee, make a little movement, and then extend your legs out long. Taking a moment here. Bend your knees again, bring your feet back to your mat, step your feet as wide as your mat. Let's do some windshield wipering. Move to your breath. So when you exhale, your knees go to one side. When you inhale, they come up. And when you exhale, they go to the other side. One more round. Once you're complete, come back to your constructive rest. Setting up for Shavasana, final relaxation pose. You can stay in constructive rest. You could step your feet wide, have your knees support each other. Your legs could come out long. Some people like to have their legs as wide as the mat. If you have something to support your knees, you're welcome to use that. I recommend Shavasana 5, 10, 15 minutes. The longer, the better. So if you'd like to pause, set a timer on your phone, and then join at the end, you're welcome to. Or you can do the simple, sweet, short Shavasana with me. Connecting back with your breath. So in Shavasana, we really try to let everything go, but that's hard to do when we're not moving. So you might notice the thoughts, the distractions, the noises. So when that happens, come back to your breath. We're not trying to change or alter our breath in any way, allowing it to be natural, to be as it is right now in this moment. Deepen your breath. Move your toes and your fingers, your feet, your hands, your ankles, your wrists. You want to move your head side to side. You want to stretch, hug your knees in. Whatever would feel good for you here. Keeping with your breath, keeping with your body in these last few moments. That's still your yoga practice. When you feel ready, you make your way over to one side. No hurry, no rush. Stay here for a breath or two. With the strength of your hands and arms, press yourself up to seated, bringing your head up last. Finding a comfortable seat so that you can sit well. Sit however is comfortable for you. Make sure that you're supported. Check in with your posture, your head, your neck. Notice if that chin's coming forward. Close your eyes or soften your gaze. Bring your hands together at heart center in Anjali Mudra. Keep peace in your mind, keep strength in your body, and keep love in your heart. Namaste. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. I hope you enjoyed this practice. You're welcome to email me with any comments, questions. You can comment below. My email is therealgofitgirl@gmail.com. I'm on Facebook and Twitter as GoFitGirl and Instagram as TheRealGoFitGirl. Take care of yourself. Take care of your loved ones. Whatever you need to do, please honor that. And I'm here for whatever you need. Please contact me if you need to talk, if it's about yoga, it's about a yoga pose, if it's just to chat. And I do have Zoom classes. If you want to do live classes, you can email me as well for that information. And that's it for now. So have a lovely day, and thanks for practicing with me.